Mob leaders, immortalized in Hollywood blockbusters such as The Godfather, have long captivated the popular imagination. However, behind these creative personalities were real-life gangsters in charge of massive and brutal smuggling, laundering, bootlegging, prostitution work, drug, abduction, and life-ending activities. The arm of organized criminal networks is frequently profoundly hierarchical, far-reaching, and difficult to penetrate, extending beyond the state and functioning as a form of quasi-law enforcement. As a result, gangster bosses have virtually always been considered untouchable. Here are 6 of the most brutal, powerful, and feared gangsters, explained in 30 minutes. Viewer discretion is advised. 1. Al Capone. Affiliation: the Chicago Outfit Syndicate. Alphonse Gabriel Capone, also known as Scarface, was an American gangster and businessman who rose to prominence during the Prohibition era as the co-founder and boss of the Chicago outfit between 1925 and 1931. His 7-year reign as a crime leader ended when he was imprisoned at the age of 33. Capone was the son of a Neapolitan immigrant couple and was born in Brooklyn, New York in 1899. He became involved in organized crime at a young age. As a teenager, he joined the 5 Points Gang, a criminal street gang of primarily Irish-American origins based in Lower Manhattan's 5 Points, where he would extort protection money. He joined the 5 Points Gang as a teenager and worked as a bouncer in organized crime establishments like brothels. In his early 20s, Capone relocated to Chicago and became Johnny Torrio's bodyguard, the head of a criminal syndicate that illegally supplied alcohol, the precursor to the outfit, and was politically protected by the Union Siciliana. A dispute with the North Side Gang was crucial in Capone's rise and fall. Torrio retired into retirement after North Side gunmen almost killed him, relinquishing leadership to Capone. Although Capone extended the bootlegging business through progressively violent means, his mutually beneficial relationships with Mayor William Hale Thompson and the Chicago Police Department made him appear safe from law enforcement. However, Capone quickly realized that violence alone would not guarantee a criminal enterprise's long-term success. Frank Galluccio, a criminal, slashed Capone's face at a bar in 1917 when he made a vulgar joke to Galluccio's sister. The attacker was then made Capone's bodyguard, and the nickname Scarface was created. From 1925 to 1929, Capone was widely regarded as the most renowned gangster in the United States. Capone, on the other hand, saw himself as an entrepreneur rather than a criminal, one who was recognized for acts of charity with the fortune he accumulated as the leader of organized crime in Chicago during the 1920s. The FBI describes the 1929 St. Valentine's Day Massacre as the culminating violence of the Chicago gang era, as 7 members or associates of the Bugs Moran mob were machine-gunned against a garage wall by rivals posing as police. Even though Al Capone was in his Florida mansion at the time, he was widely considered to have ordered the execution. He was never convicted of the killings, but he did wind himself up in prison for tax evasion, bringing his career as a crime leader to an end at the age of 33. He spent the most of his sentence in the renowned Alcatraz Federal Penitentiary off the coast of San Francisco until being released in 1939, by which time his mental capacity had deteriorated substantially. Al Capone died in 1947 of a heart attack following a stroke at the age of 48. The famed mobster left his impact not just on the streets of 1920 Chicago, but also on 20th century Hollywood, with several mafia films inspired by his life and actions. The image of a gangster wearing a pinstriped suit and a tilted hat may be traced back to photographs of Al Capone. His accent and demeanor have also influenced various gangster depictions in comic books, cinema, popular music, and literature. For the film Little Caesar, actor Edward G. Robinson spent time at an Al Capone trial in 1931 to obtain a feel of his body language, which inspired his part as a hoodlum who rose through the levels of organized crime. 2. John Gotti. Affiliation: Gambino Family Gang. John Gotti was an American mafioso and the head of the Gambino criminal organization in New York City. He ordered and helped execute the death of Gambino head Paul Castellano in December 1985, then took over the family, commanding what was characterized as America's most powerful criminal empire. Born on October 27, 1940 in Bronx, New York City, John Joseph Gotti Jr. and his brothers were raised in poverty and became criminals at a young age. Belonging to a large family of 13 children, Gotti's childhood was all about survival and escape. Like many underprivileged neighborhoods, This early life in a struggling part of the Bronx brought out Gotti's talent in crime, and he went on doing petty thefts with increasing efficiency with each event. Gotti swiftly rose to prominence as one of the Gambino family's highest earners and a protege of Agnello Della Croce, the family's underboss who ran the organization from Ozone Park, Queens. At his peak, Gotti was one of the most powerful and deadly criminals in the United States. While his contemporaries normally avoided drawing attention, particularly from the media, Gotti became known as the Dapper Don due to his fine attire and loud manner in front of the cameras. He was eventually nicknamed the Teflon Don because 3 high-profile cases in the 1980s ended in acquittals, despite the fact that the proceedings were marred by jury manipulation, juror misbehavior, and witness intimidation. Law enforcement continued to amass evidence against Gotti, who reportedly made between $5 million and $20 million every year as Gambino leader. Gotti began doing errands for Carmine Fatico, a capo in the Gambino family, which was then known as the Anastasia family, led by boss Albert Anastasia. Gotti, together with his brother Gene and buddy Ruggiero, carried out truck hijackings at Idlewild Airport, now John F. Kennedy International Airport. During this period, Gotti befriended fellow mafia hijacker and future Bonanno family head Joseph Massino, earning the nicknames Black John and Crazy Horse. Around this time, Gotti met his mentor, Gambino underboss Agnello Neil Della Croce. After Della Croce died of cancer on December 2, 1985, Castellano changed his succession plan, assigning Bellotti as underboss to Thomas Gambino, the only acting boss, and planning to disband Gotti's group. When the boss and underboss arrived for the meeting in the evening, assassins under Gotti's instructions attacked and killed them. Gotti and Gravano saw the hit from their cars. At the time of his takeover, the Gambino family was considered the most powerful American mafia family, with an annual revenue of $500 million. Gravano estimated in his book Underboss that Gotti earned at least $5 million a year as boss, and more likely $10 million to $12 million. Gotti had a number of trials under his names, and these garnered him a massive popularity, as every American at that point would tune in to get updates on this infamous crime boss. In 1958, Gotti met his wife Victoria DiGiorgio at a pub. He and DiGiorgio, who was of Italian and Russian heritage, married on March 6, 1962, when Victoria was 17 years old. They had 2 daughters, Angela and Victoria, and 3 sons, John Jr., Frank, and Peter. When Gotti's son Frank was 12 years old, a neighbor in Howard Beach, Queens, called Favara unintentionally ran him over when Frank was riding his mini bike near a garbage bin, killing him on the spot. Gotti earned the tag of Dapper Don for a reason. He was known for wearing expensive suits, hand-painted ties, and matched pocket squares from the brand Brioni. In 2006, attorney Charlie Carnesi revealed to the New York Post that he wore a vintage Brioni tie from the late boss's collection to defend Gotti's son John Jr. in court when he was charged with racketeering. Though Brioni was his favored brand, following his death in 2002, a representative for the designer informed the New York Times they had never served nor saw Gotti in their New York City store. According to the New York Times, he had a professional manicure, haircut, and blow-dry every day after becoming a boss. 3. The Kray twins. Affiliation: the firm crime ring. Ronald James Ronnie Kray and Reginald Reggie Kray were identical twin brothers from Hagerstown who rose to prominence in the late 1950s before being arrested in 1968. Their group, the Firm, was located in Bethnal Green, where the Kray twins lived with their mother. Their record held crimes such as murder, armed robbery, arson, protection rackets, gambling, and assaults. At their height in the 1960s, they achieved celebrity status by socializing with important members of London society, being shot by David Bailey and appearing on television. Ronald and Reginald Kray were born on October 24, 1933 in Hagerstown, East London, to Charles David Kray and Violet Annie Lee. The Krays were thought to be of mixed Irish, Austrian, Jewish, and Romanical ancestry. However, this has been challenged. The Kray household was overseen by their mother, who remained the boys' most influential figure throughout their upbringing. Their father used to sell junk for a living and enjoyed heavy drinking. Ronnie later remembered early years and said, "We had our mother and we had each other, so we never needed anyone else." According to John Pearson, the Krays' biographer, their mother sowed the seeds of the twins' malignant narcissism as adults by encouraging them to believe they were special while catering to their every desire. Mr. Kray, on the other hand, escaped the British Army during World War II after being drafted in September 1939. He remained a fugitive for the next 15 years before being caught in 1954. This meant the twins were raised mostly without a father figure in life. Their maternal grandpa, Jimmy Cannonball Lee, influenced the brothers to pursue amateur boxing, which was once a popular activity among working-class lads in the East End. Sibling rivalry motivated them, and each had some success. Ronnie was seen to be the more violent of the twins, frequently getting into street confrontations as a teen. Jonathan Raban, a British academic, stated that Ronnie had a low IQ but was an ardent reader, particularly of novels like T.E. Lawrence, Ord Wingate, and Al Capone. Raban ascribed much of Ronnie's savage petulance as a teenager to his frustration with having to suppress his bisexual impulses. In March 1952, the Kray twins were called up for national service in the British Army. Despite reporting to the Royal Fusiliers Depot at the Tower of London, the twins sought to depart after only a few minutes. When the corporal in command attempted to stop them, Ronnie gravely injured him by punching him in the jaw. The Krays then returned to their East End residence, where they were apprehended by police the next morning and handed over to the army. In September, while absent without leave, the twins attacked a police officer who attempted to apprehend them. They were among the final convicts to be detained at the Tower of London. However, after it became evident that they would both be dishonorably dismissed from the service, the Kray's behavior deteriorated. Prison psychiatrists who evaluated Ronnie concluded that he was educationally subnormal, psychopathic, schizophrenic, and insane. Despite their brief and terrible military status, the Krays acquired a very militaristic demeanor after being released, with Ronnie referring to himself as the Colonel. The Kray twins' boxing careers ended due to felony convictions and disgraceful departure from the Army, driving them into a life of crime. They invested in a snooker club in Mile End and introduced protection rackets. By the late 1950s, under Jay Murray's leadership, they had moved into truck hijacking, armed robbery, and arson, obtaining additional clubs and property. Ronnie was imprisoned in 1960 for conducting a protection racket, while Reggie purchased Esmeralda's Barn, a West End nightclub that increased their reputation and criminal prominence. Ronnie, regarded as volatile and delusional, modeled their group The Firm after Chicago's 1920 mobsters, adopting their mannerisms, including having a personal barber. By the 1960s, the Kray twins were seen as both glamorous stars and notorious criminals, becoming representations of swinging London. Thanks to owning nightclubs, the twins mixed with celebrities like Frank Sinatra and Judy Garland while projecting a gangster chic image. They presented themselves as philanthropic benefactors and self-made men, exemplifying a rebellious spirit cherished during a period of altering societal standards. Ronnie Kray was bisexual during a period when the concept was illegal in Britain. Lord Bob Boothby, a conservative politician and media figure, was among those pulled into his orbit. MI5, Britain's secret agency, became aware of a sexual relationship between Ronnie Kray and Boothby, as well as their attendance at homosexual parties where rent boys were supplied for the couple's amusement. The Kray brothers were notorious, not just for their brutal crimes, but also for their efforts to develop public personalities. The Krays' prominence as cultural icons was cemented by films like The Krays, 1990, which portrayed them as both gangsters and gentlemen, brutal criminals, and media people. Scholars suggest that the Krays have become myths, representing a darker aspect of British identity and East End history. Ronnie Kray died of a heart attack in 1995, and Reggie died from terminal cancer in 2000. Both brothers' funerals drew large audiences, demonstrating their ongoing prominence in British popular culture. 4. Dawood Ibrahim. Affiliation: the D Company Crime Syndicate. Dawood Ibrahim is an Indian crime boss, drug lord, and terrorist. He purportedly runs the Indian organized crime organization D Company, which he started in Mumbai in the 1970s. Ibrahim is sought on allegations of murder, extortion, targeted killing, drug trafficking, and terrorism. In 2003, India and the United States branded him as a worldwide terrorist, with a $25 million bounty on his head for his suspected participation in the 1993 Bombay bombings. In 2011, he was ranked second on the U.S. Federal Bureau of Investigation's The World's 10 Most Wanted Fugitives list, and fourth on Forbes. To escape FATF sanctions, the Pakistani government added Dawood and 87 other individuals to its sanction list in 2020. Dawood Ibrahim was born on December 26, 1955, into a Konkani Muslim household in Khed, Maharashtra, India. Ironically, his father, Ibrahim Kaskar, was a head policeman with the Mumbai Police, while his mother, Amina B, was a homemaker. As one of the most prominent crime lords of the modern era, Dawood Ibrahim began his criminal career as a young man. He began by committing fraud, theft, and robbery before joining the gang of Bashu Dada, a local don from Mumbai. However, in the late 1970s, Ibrahim left the gang and founded his own syndicate, the D Company, with his elder brother, Shabir Ibrahim Kaskar. Following Shabir's death at the hands of the rival Pathan gang, Dawood became the only head of D Company, which quickly rose to prominence in organized crime. Under Ibrahim's leadership, D Company extended its operations to encompass gold smuggling, real estate transactions, extortion, and drug trafficking. Dawood departed India in 1986 after being accused in Samad Khan's murder, seeking shelter in Dubai. From there, with the help of his second-in-command, Chhota Rajan, he expanded his gang's global reach. By the early 1990s, D Company allegedly had over 5,000 members and yearly income of tens of crores of rupees. Dawood Ibrahim's most infamous crime occurred in 1993, when the Indian authorities branded him as one of the masterminds of the deadly Mumbai bombings. Following the assaults, he fled Dubai for Karachi, Pakistan, where he is believed to be living today. International organizations quickly saw Ibrahim as a worldwide threat. The U.S. Department of Treasury classified him as a terrorist under the Specially Classified Nationals List and the Foreign Narcotics Kingpin Designation Act. This designation prohibited U.S. financial institutions from doing business with him and froze assets thought to be in his possession. The U.S. Treasury also emphasized Ibrahim's ties to terrorist organizations such as Al-Qaeda, as well as his participation in smuggling, drug trafficking, and money laundering across South Asia, the Middle East, Africa, and Europe. Along with his links to Al-Qaeda and personalities such as Osama bin Laden, Dawood sought refuge with the Taliban in the late 1990s when visiting Afghanistan. His network is said to have helped finance and provide logistics for terrorist strikes, such as the 2008 Mumbai attacks and the Gujarat riots. D Company has also been accused of undermining India by issuing counterfeit cash and financing terrorism and civil unrest. Today, Dawood Ibrahim is involved in a variety of unlawful activities, including terror funding, drug trafficking, gun running, extortion, and money laundering. His influence extends to the Hawala system, a clandestine form of cross-border money transfers, as well as real estate ventures in Karachi, Dubai, and India. Despite attempts by the Indian government, which turned over a list of its 38 most wanted offenders, including Dawood, to Pakistan in 2006, he is still evading capture. D Company operates throughout Asia, Europe, and Africa, with India accounting for around 40% of company revenues. Dawood Ibrahim's criminal enterprise continues to pose a considerable danger, and his record as a fugitive mastermind ranks among the world's most prominent organized crime personalities. Many investigators have linked Ibrahim and his syndicate D Company to the funding of Bollywood films. D Company sponsored several Bollywood companies and films during the 1980s and 1990s. Ibrahim was associated with several celebrities at the time, including beauty pageant finalist Anita Ayub and Bollywood actress Mandakini. D Company is also renowned for extorting and making threats against Bollywood producers and celebrities, and according to popular beliefs, it was involved in the deaths of Javed Siddique and Gulshan Kumar, two well-known producers. The 2018 video game Hitman 2 has a Mumbai criminal king engaged in the movie business named Dawood Rangan as a target. Many assume this to be referring to Dawood Ibrahim, further showing the impact of this Indian gangster's reach worldwide. 5. Pablo Escobar. Affiliation: the Medellin Cartel. Pablo Emilio Escobar Gaviria was a Colombian drug lord, narco-terrorist, and politician who founded and led the infamous Medellin Cartel. Escobar, nicknamed the King of Cocaine, is regarded as the wealthiest criminal in history, accumulated an estimated net worth of $30 billion US by the time of his death, equivalent to $70 billion as of 2022, while his drug cartel dominated the cocaine trade into the United States in the 1980s and early 1990s. Pablo Emilio Escobar Gaviria was born on December 1, 1949, in the little community of El Tablazo, near Rio Negro, Antioquia department. Born in Rio Negro to a peasant family and raised in Medellin, Escobar briefly studied at Universidad Autónoma Latinoamericana of Medellin, but left without graduating. Escobar began his criminal career with his accomplices by doing little frauds and robberies, eventually stealing tombstones, sandblasting their inscriptions, and reselling them. After dropping out of college, Escobar joined gangs to steal automobiles. Escobar quickly became involved in violent crime, hiring gangs to abduct individuals who owed him money and demand ransoms, often shredding up ransom letters even after he had received them. It is believed that businessman Diego Echevarria Misas was abducted and subsequently executed in the summer of 1971 with the help of Escobar, who allegedly got a $50,000 ransom from the Echevarria family. Escobar would repeat the technique with drug boss Fabio Restrepo, abducting and fatally shooting him in 1975. As Colombia's cocaine business flourished, due in part to its closeness to Peru, Ecuador, and Bolivia, which are significant coca growers, Escobar became active in drug smuggling. In the 1970s, he played a key role in establishing the Medellin cartel. The Medellin cartel and the Cali cartel bribed Colombian politicians and supported both the conservative and liberal parties. The Medellin cartel deployed hitmen to enforce its money or death legislation, while the Cali cartel used payments to influence politicians, media, police, army personnel, and judges. Escobar and many other Colombian drug lords had power at all levels of the Colombian government, since many of the political candidates they financially supported were ultimately elected. The Medellin cartel, founded in the early 1970s, grew when Escobar met with drug lords on a farm in April 1978. By the end of 1978, they had delivered around 19,000 kilograms of cocaine to the United States. By the mid-1980s, the Medellin cartel controlled the cocaine trade, with Escobar holding immense wealth and political influence. According to some sources, he was valued at almost $25 billion, which allowed him to live a luxury lifestyle that included a 7,000-acre or 2,800-hectare estate called Hacienda Nápoles, named after Naples, Italy in Colombia. It allegedly cost $63 million and included a soccer pitch, dinosaur statues, artificial lakes, a bullfighting ring, an airport, and a tennis court. The site also had a zoo with giraffes, hippopotamuses, and camels, among other creatures. Furthermore, Escobar supported several programs to help the underprivileged, garnering parallels to Robin Hood. This view helped him gain an alternative seat in Congress in 1982. However, Escobar's well-known brutality overshadowed his charity initiatives. He was popularly known to solve difficulties with plata o plomo, which means silver for bribes and lead for gunshots. In 1989, the cartel reportedly planted a bomb on an airliner in an effort to assassinate an accused informant. More than 100 individuals were dead. In the midst of the mounting slaughter, the government launched a huge manhunt for Escobar, while also negotiating his surrender. In June 1991, Escobar surrendered and was imprisoned. His detention, however, had no impact on his illicit operations or lifestyle. Escobar later constructed a lavish jail known as La Catedral, which was no less than a palace. However, after he tortured and ended 2 cartel members in La Catedral, officials opted to relocate him to a less hospitable prison. Seeing his position to be in danger, Escobar fled in July 1992 before being moved. Escobar turned 44 on December 1, 1993, and supposedly celebrated with cake, wine, and marijuana. The next day, his hiding place in Medellin was uncovered. While Colombian authorities rushed into the building, Escobar and a bodyguard made it to the top. A pursuit and gunfight occurred, and Escobar was fatally shot. However, some speculated that he committed suicide. Following his death, the Medellin cartel fell apart and lost its former power. 6. Joaquin Guzman. Affiliation: the Sinaloa cartel. Joaquin Guzman, often known as El Chapo, is a former drug lord and leader of the Sinaloa cartel. Guzman is alleged to have killed over 34,000 people and was regarded as the world's most powerful drug trafficker before being extradited to the United States and sentenced to life in prison. Joaquin Archibaldo Guzman Loera was born on April 4, 1957, to a poor family in the remote village of La Tuna, Badiraguato, Sinaloa, Mexico. He was subjected to physical violence at the hands of his father, who also introduced him to the drug trade, assisting him in growing marijuana for local traffickers in his early adulthood. There are little facts concerning Guzman's childhood. As a youngster, he was frequently beaten, and he would occasionally go to his maternal grandmother's house to avoid such punishment. However, he stood up to his father to keep his younger siblings from being abused. He was regarded as a practical joker who liked pulling pranks on his friends and family when he was younger. Guzman began working for drug lord Hector El Güero Palma in the 1970s, delivering and managing cocaine shipments from the Sierra Madre region to metropolitan areas along the Mexico-United States border via airplane. In the early 1980s, he was introduced to Felix Gallardo, a major drug lord in Mexico at the time. Guzman began his career as a driver for Felix Gallardo before being promoted to logistics manager, where he organized cocaine shipments from Colombia to Mexico via land, air, and sea. Guzman rose up the ranks and started working directly with Felix Gallardo. Following the 1985 torture and death of DEA agent Enrique Camarena, a significant crackdown on the cartel began. The arrest of Felix Gallardo in 1989 caused the cartel to splinter, resulting in the formation of factions like the Sinaloa cartel, which Guzman co-founded. Guzman pioneered trafficking tactics, including tunnels and concealing cocaine in chili cans, while corrupt authorities supported operations. By the late 1980s, U.S. officials had recognized Guzman as a drug trafficking boss who coordinated enormous shipments and laundered money through bribes and underground networks. Following the arrest of the Amezcua brothers, founders of the Colima cartel, in 1999 on methamphetamine trafficking charges, there was a call for leadership throughout Mexico to organize methamphetamine shipments north. Guzman spotted an opportunity and took it. Previously, Guzman and Ismael Zambada Garcia were partners in the Sinaloa cartel, but now Guzman is solely responsible for the methamphetamine operation. He developed his own connections in China, Thailand, and India to get the essential precursor chemicals. At the time of his capture, Guzman's Sinaloa gang was Mexico's wealthiest and most powerful drug gang. It trafficked multi-ton cocaine shipments from Colombia via Mexico to the United States via air, sea, and road, with distribution cells spread across the country. The gang has also been involved in the manufacturing, smuggling, and distribution of Mexican methamphetamine, marijuana, and heroin sourced from Southeast Asia. Guzman and his colleague Ismael Zambada Garcia became Mexico's top drug kingpins after his competitor Ociel Cardenas of the Gulf Cartel was arrested in 2003. The United States Department of the Treasury regarded Guzman as the most powerful drug trafficker in the world prior to his capture in 2014. Guzman's drug enterprise made him a billionaire, and he was rated as the 10th richest man in Mexico and 1,140th in the world in 2011, with a net worth of around $1 billion US. To supplement his drug trafficking, the Sinaloa cartel established a shipping and transportation business. Guzman has been referred to as the biggest drug lord of all time, and the United States Drug Enforcement Administration considers him the godfather of the drug world, with strong estimations that he eclipsed Pablo Escobar's power and reach. Guzman had been arrested 3 times, but he had escaped the previous 2 and remained hidden in isolated sections of the Sierra Madre Mountains for nearly 15 years without being captured. After his recapture in January 2016, Joaquin El Chapo Guzman faced extradition to the United States, despite his attorney's efforts to avoid it. Guzman was extradited on January 19, 2017, and accused of drug trafficking, murder, money laundering, and other offenses in numerous U.S. jurisdictions. His trial began in November 2018 under high security, owing to his history of intimidating witnesses and jurors. On 12 February 2019, he was found guilty on all counts and sentenced to life in prison plus 30 years on July 17, 2019. Guzman is now being detained at ADX Florence, the highest security supermax prison in the United States, with a forfeiture order of $12.6 billion. The life of these infamous gangsters may seem glamorous, often filled with money, power, and fame. However, it is also evident how these criminals seek redemption during their year's end. Figures like Al Capone and Dawood Ibrahim tried to remain in history as heroes, but in the end, they were only remembered in the magnitude of their crimes. If you enjoyed this video and want to dive deeper into the world of gangsters, don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe to stay tuned for part 2.